Alright guys, sorry I've been gone so long, but I'm back with an updated deck profile for the Constellars. I think this deck is massively better than the previous version, and I'll go over why. And DevPro's doing some update thing, and I just got back into town, which is why I haven't uploaded any videos in a while, so I'll be back on DevPro soon, and apologies for not posting any videos lately, but back into the deck list, 3 Allighetti, 3 Kaus, 3 Pollux, and 3 Sombrace, all standard. 3 Sheraton, because without the Sheraton, so you have 6 targets for an extra summon that turn, and 3 Allighetti and 3 Pollux. You have the 3 Kaus and then 3 Tenkies to search for it, so you have 6 monsters that give you extra normals, and then 6 monsters that make you rank 5s, but you have no... If you're in a top decking situation and you top deck an Allighetti, it doesn't do anything on its own. It doesn't do anything unless you have another constellar monster in your hand. But Sheraton can just search out Sombrace, and Sombrace is a 1-card exceed. So I think Sheraton's it is a little slow, but you have plenty of traps to make yourself live. Pleiedes is a walking compulse to protect yourself, and Sheraton can search out whatever you need. And then if Sheraton somehow lives, if they play passive, they set and pass, you can summon a Kaus, increase Sheraton to level 4, overlay for Omega, and then if you want, overlay M7 on top of it. But so Sheraton is not dead as far as, you can summon it. If it lives, you can still exceed with it. And I mean, if you're ever 1 card away from a broken hand, this card gets you there. And like I said, it searches out Sombrace, which is just key for those grind game type matches. Hand traps, I run 5 hand traps, the 1 Honest because everything's light, 2 Valor because Valor is amazing right now, and 2 Max C because Max C is still really good right now. And the reason I run so many hand traps is because with Constellar Ptolemy M7, you can recycle your hand traps. So, you make an M7, and then your opponent's like, okay, I'm going to go off, and you drop Max C, and they're like, I'm just going to stop, and then on your turn, you add Max C back to your hand, and they're just like, oh, fuck, I'm going to have to kill the M7. It forces them to push through the Max C. It lets you get back another Valor, another Max C, and it forces them to push through that Valor, push through that Max C, and then get caught overextending by like a Mirror Force, a Compulse, something like that. Then the 1 Bear, because you play 3 Tenkies, because you want your Kaus. 2 Lance. I went with 2 Lance in the main over 2 MST. One reason was for Bear. Second reason was, for the battle damage step tricks and stuff. But the second reason is because against E-Dragons, when you put Pleiedes on the field, obviously you can just, your opponent goes to put a Drago sack up, you just bounce it. So on their turn, they're going to breakthrough skill you from the grave and shut off your Pleiedes and then easily kill it. And MST doesn't have anything to say about a breakthrough skill that's in the grave. However, Lance does. So Lance keeps Pleiedes active on their turn, and it makes all your monsters real big if needed. Obviously, the 1 Rhoda, 1 Reborn, 1 Heavy Storm. I don't play Dark Hole in the main. I might start, but I don't know. I like to maintain field presence with this deck, so it's iffy. Solemn Warning, 2 Bottomless, 2 Mirror Force, 2 Compulse, 2 XYZ Reborn, and 3 Fiendish Chains. The trap choices, obviously, Solemn, obvious, Bottomless, obvious. Mirror Force, I know it's a little bit slow because your opponent has to attack into you to make Mirror Force live, and Mirror Force is really bad against dragons and stuff, but you have a fantastic dragon matchup with this deck, honestly. You have the 2 Bottomless, 2 Compulse, a monster that compulses, and this card, which I'll get into it, but this is pretty much another compulse. And between that, 2 main deck Valors and 2 main deck Max Cs, dragons are not really much of an issue. I mean, obviously they can be if they go like herp a derp, turn 1, fucking, like double rejuve, but Mirror Force is still really good for those rogue matchups, people that overextend to try to fight through that Max C, things like that. Obviously, 2 Compulse, it's great right now. 3 chains, I'll talk about that first. Pretty much with Pleiedes, you can bounce a dead Fiendish Chain back to your hand and reset it to create like a soft lock. Keep locking your opponent every turn by bouncing a dead Fiendish Chain back to your hand. It can be really clutch. And Fiendish Chain's still a really good card. People seem to not think so, but it is. And then last card, I kind of go back and forth on this card. This card is either amazing or pretty bad. Because what it does is target 1 XYZ monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and attach this card as an XYZ material. So, let me give you one example. Now, the big downside is you have to have an XYZ monster in your graveyard for this card to be live. So, early game, not good, especially if you draw like double Valor and, XYZ Reborn, like 2 Fiendish Chains, something where you can't instantly make an XYZ, or if your XYZ gets bottomless, something like that. XYZ Reborn can definitely be dead, but, late game, if you have a Pleiedes in grave, and they're like, okay, I'm going to make my push, they MST you, you chain XYZ Reborn, special summon Pleiedes, equip it, so this XYZ Reborn has turned into a compulse with 2500 attack, and it dodged their MST. So, I mean, there's times when this card is absolutely dead for at least, it can slow down your hand a lot, but there's times when this card is just absolutely insane. And on other broken plays I've done with this is like I had like this in my hand, my opponent had like Graph on field or something, I went Volcasaurus Gaia Charger combo, dealt like, what is that, almost 6,000 damage. He ran over Gaia Dragon next turn. On my turn, XYZ Reborn back to Volcasaurus. Volcasaurus' Graph 1. So, I mean, getting 2 shots off of your Volcasaurus is pretty broke. Stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. Another card I've seen constellar players using is Safe Zone, because a safe zoned Pleiedes is an absolute bitch for a lot of decks to deal with. But anyway, the changes I made was adding in the 2 Max Cs and the 1 Sheraton over the star charts. The reason is star chart is a win more card. Like, star chart is like you only draw cards if you're XYZ summoning every turn, but it does nothing if you are in a position where you can't XYZ summon. So, like, if I draw a Max C, I know it XYZ summon, okay, it's fine, set a few traps, they go draw off the Max C, but, if I draw a star chart and no way to XYZ summon, it's just bad, it's just dead, it sits there and does nothing for you. Like, star chart, if you have a good hand, star chart will, like, win the game for you. But if you have a bad hand, it doesn't help you fight out of the bad hand. So it's a really, like, win more card. And besides, like, in this dragon format, having main deck Max Cs and Valors is way more important than having a main deck star chart. So I gotta say, anyone that plays star chart right now in this meta in Constellars is a bad player. No offense to anyone that does it, but you just don't understand the meta right now. Hand traps are so much more important than having a win more card. So, anyways, onto the side deck. 2 Eradicator Virus for the Adrius, because I would like to auto win against Prophecies. I would like that very much. Um, and yeah, because the prophecy matchup isn't exactly what you'd call stellar, because compulse does nothing to that deck, really. 3 Droll and Lockbird, because as I said with Valor and Max C, you can reuse Droll and Lockbird with Ptolemy. So you can keep, you know, the spellbook player under Droll and Lockbird for literally the entire game and just auto win like that. 3 Stygian Dirge. Auto win against dragons, auto win against gadgets, or any XYZ or synchro based deck. This card pretty much just completely wrecks them. 2 Vanity's Emptiness, because it shuts out a lot of decks, and you can play around it. Like, you know, you summon Pleiades, activate Emptiness on your opponent's turn. You know, and they can't do anything. Then your turn, you know, Pleiades, bounce Emptiness to your hand, special summon your own monsters, and then activate Emptiness again. It's fantastic. 2 MST in the side just for those rogue matchups, or against Prophecy, they will usually side in D Fissure, expecting you to side in the Drone Lock. So you want to have that set MST so that you can get rid of their Fissure when they flip it, and then go for your Drone Lock. Then the 1 Dark Hole, and then one interesting card that I'm trying out. I haven't actually gotten to try this card out yet. I've just recently added it, but I think it's really interesting. It's Autonomous Action Unit. And it says, pay 1,500 life points to target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon that target to your side of the field, in face-up attack position, and equip it with this card. When this card leaves the field, destroy the equipped monster. So, the thought is, get a Pleiedes onto the field, and this is if you're facing a deck that, like, does, you know, has rank 4 monsters. So, summon Pleiedes, you know, pass turn, you know, they go, do whatever, get a monster in the grave, you go Autonomous Action Unit, grab their level 4 monster, summon like a Pollux, overlay into my stroke, and then bounce the action unit to your hand with Pleiedes to reuse it next turn. So it's pretty much like a reusable Monster Reborn for your opponent's graveyard at the cost of like using a Pleiades bounce. So I think it has a lot of potential. I don't know. I'll probably update you guys once I've tested it more. But anyway, we got 2 Omega, because you can't always make Pleiades, and because it's spell and trap protection. 2 Pleiades, because it's Pleiades. 2 M7, because it's M7. 1 Volcasaurus, because it's level 5, rank 5. Tyrus, Adrius for the deck Devi, or for the Eradicator, I mean. Gaia, Shockmaster, because it wins games. Abyss Dweller, because if you're playing dragons and they have no hand in a graveyard full of monsters, Abyss Dweller says no. 1 Paladynamo, because it's Paladynamo. 1 Cowboy, because it's Cowboy. And 1 Mystroke, because it's Mystroke. I shouldn't have to explain them. Now, I do want to talk real quick about some of the sort of win conditions in the deck. One example is Pleiedes. Obviously, just bouncing everything with Pleiedes. If your opponent is playing an Exceed or Synchro-based deck, Pleiedes just bounces things, and prevents them from doing anything. This deck is an amazing stun deck because of Pleiedes and because of the traps. Because the thing is, in a lot of stun decks, you know, maybe you open Bottomless, Mirror Force, Fiendish Chain. Okay, that's cool, but what happens if you don't draw into any more protection? What happens if you don't draw into like a Solemn or a Compulse or something else to defend yourself? Eventually, your opponent gets past your defenses and overwhelms you. However, in this deck, if you open up with 3 traps and your opponent, you know, like, you know, opens up like 2 or 3 MST and gets rid of them all, it's cool. I can just make a Pleiades, and now he's essentially a walking Compulse. So you never run out of defenses in this deck. You never run out of stunning ability. So that's what's really nice about this deck, is that you never run out of trap cards to stall and stun against your opponent. So Pleiades is great for just generating advantage because he's summoning him as like a soft +1. You know, you go Pollux, Kaus, Pleiades, and you've essentially gone -1, but compulsing 2 cards, you know, if he lives long enough to compulse 2 cards, you've gone +1. And then you can soft lock your opponent, like I said, with like bouncing back dead fiendish chains, things like that. So Pleiades can be a win condition. Another thing is M7. If you get M7 on the field to, you know, keep looping Honest back to your hand, keep looping Valor or Max C back to your hand, that can certainly create win conditions. If you're forcing your opponent, you know, if you're Valoring your opponent, like if they're playing Dragoonides, every turn they summon ducks, you drop Valor, summon ducks, drop Valor. For 3 turns in a row, your opponent's in a very much a losing scenario, you know, losing situation there. Other than that, yeah, M7, if you don't have hand traps, you can just like make him detach Pollux, add Pollux to your hand. Or you could detach a monster, put one of their exceeds back to their hand. So that card's insane. Obviously, Volcasaurus Gaia Charger is a broken combo. Tyrus to ignore traps in late game. Tyrus kind of beats Evil Swarms a lot of times because it's just 50 attack too strong and doesn't care about their traps. Anyway, yeah, Shockmaster wins games. So Pleiades and M7 can kind of be win conditions. Volcasaurus can obviously be a win condition. Adrius to an EEV can be a win condition. Shockmaster is a win condition, and Dweller can sort of be a win condition. So this deck is really solid because, again, it never runs out of traps, essentially, because Pleiades is a walking 2500 attack compulse. So even if you run out of real traps, you still have hand traps, and you have monster traps. So this deck is a fantastic stun deck that never runs out of traps, and I think it's just a fantastic deck that everyone should try out. Anyway, that was my really, really long constellar discussion because I really, really love this deck. Anyways, guys, that's all for me. Peace out. Deuces.